People want to buy from people, not organizations. The product sells itself.
Awesome.
We don't have any outbound. We don't do sales. We don't really do ads. We don't do LinkedIn ads, Google ads.
That must be incredible.
Joseph Lee, he's not just building another SaaS tool. He's changing the way teams do product demos. Forbes 30 under 30, 50,000 plus users, zero outbound sales. In this episode, you'll hear how Joseph went from flipping electronics at 15 to creating a tool that basically sells itself. Let's get into it.
I do think having a network is supremely important, but I also think it's very context dependent. I think it always boils down to product market fit, right? You can be the loudest person in the room, but
That's true.
unless your product actually adds value.
Is there something silly or something that's very basic that you use that you don't see gurus talking about, but you know that it works?
I'd say the biggest thing is like,
E-coffee with experts.
Joseph, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Excited.
Now we are excited. We are the one thanking you because again, as I said, I'm over enthusiastic about your tool, especially because I understand the pain. I understand the concerns. I understand how important it is in the SaaS market, especially with so many salespeople right away. It's important to create a good impression, even at the first email. And sometimes the first email can have videos, such as the one SupaDemo creates. Right now, what I do, since we don't sell software, we sell more of a service thing, I use Tela, which I freakily love Tela so much. For those who don't know, and I would highly recommend you as well, but Tela is just a recorder with nice prompt and editing. But Joseph's tool takes a step further, bringing more interactivity between both the seller and the buyer. Joseph, why don't you start talking to us about SupaDemo, about how you started it? Why did you start it? Was it because you had similar experiences as to mine? Like, I really need to make sure that my pipeline is better, or was it something else?
Yeah. And I think, Victor, one thing I would preface, first of all, by saying is I think there's maybe a bit of a misconception that this is more so for salespeople. But,
Oh, that's nice.
the reason we started SupaDemo is actually, demonstrating products, how they work, why they matter, the benefits of them, and how it kind of convenes into ROI ultimately to end customers. That's essential for not just salespeople, but people in customer success, customer onboarding,
Account management, all the
account
names we have.
management. Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Product management, product marketing. But doing so today is extremely arduous, time consuming. You got to build a script. You got to record yourself. You got to look fancy. Hair needs to look good. And it probably takes 4, 5, 6 different retakes in order for you to get it right.
true.
And worst of all, when you get it out, if you have a high velocity product or if it's changing a lot, it's almost impossible to keep updated, right? You're having to do it all over again because it isn't modular. So that's the first thing I would say in terms of use cases. I think we actually have a wide range of use cases that we're best fit
That's
for.
great.
In terms of the genesis of the company itself, I've been an entrepreneur since I was like 15 or 16. Started my first few like side projects and businesses, buying and selling electronics online.
That's awesome.
And
That's
then
awesome.
went into a bunch of different like segments like candles and t-shirt printing and a web development agency while I was going to school, ultimately settling on my first company, first venture funded company back when I was about 20 or so. So I built that company for about 7 years. The company's still going. It's profitable, but during that time, we were very much a sales-led organization, right? We were selling to non-tech native, distributor owners and wholesale owners at different food companies and food suppliers.
Okay.
And one of the things that I really struggled with as one of the people, dialing the phones and calling people is how do I explain the benefits, the features, and why people should care about our product with just words or by sending them a video that they very often would not watch till the end.
Wouldn't even click sometimes.
Yeah, and what I noticed is when I was actually able to get them on a screen sharing call and have a much more interactive back and forth engaging session, that's when that light bulb moment hit for them. They're like, holy crap, like I need this like yesterday. How do I get started? So obviously you can't scale your time on a one-to-one screen sharing basis. So that idea started brewing in the back of my head of like, how do we actually get people to value in that aha moment in your product and demonstrate why it matters in a very engaging, lightweight, interactive way, but also how do you do that very quickly? How do you do that like at scale, not only for yourself, but for your team? And after I left that company, I was like ideating and eventually meeting my co-founder and we started building and one thing led to another,
There you
and
are.
here we are today.
That's nice. That's very nice. Why don't you talk a little bit more about you as a young entrepreneur during college, university, and everything else? Because sometimes I imagine whenever I think of somebody starting very fresh, the first idea that comes to my mind it was when Spider-Man started being a superhero when he was in college. And of course, you're not doing supervillain crime fighting here, but you are handling a lot during a very intense moment in our lives, right? So
Yeah.
please enlighten us. How did you manage your superpowers while you were there?
I think a lot of people have this misconception that every entrepreneur has clarity of thought and has the
Oh yeah,
entire
they do
path
have it. I agree.
planned out. But I think honestly, a lot of entrepreneurship and like what startups, a lot of founders build, it comes from just curiosity and a level of naivety. And I think that's one of the reasons why younger entrepreneurs or people that are younger, I encourage them to get into startups because you haven't gone through the rigors of life and the stress and the
And the
realities.
corporate life, the corporate
Exactly.
rules, right? You're still not that fresh. You're still fresh. You're still
Yeah,
fresh.
yeah, totally. You're
Yep.
malleable, you're impressionable, you're somewhat naive, which I
Yeah.
actually think is very good because you have that like belief system that you can do
Mhm.
something like greater than yourself.
That's true.
So I would say for me, it was very much doing a lot of entrepreneurial things. So like going out and traveling across North America, like doing hackathons and building things and working on side projects. I think I was just very much enamored with the process of like building something that's like an idea in my head and like getting it out there and turning it into like money that I could use to
Mhm.
pay for college and
Which is always
pay
good.
pay for the party upcoming in
Yeah.
the week. I'd say the biggest thing is like taking that leap of faith and just like not over planning and just doing. And I think that naturally has organically like led to bigger and bigger and bigger things until you're like, crap, I have a business with like investors and I have customers. So it's not like rocket science oftentimes. And it's not like the initial idea even that you end up like scaling with. You just got to start somewhere and let it evolve over time.
I agree. If you had the option, very cliche question, and I apologize, but I think the answer can be interesting. But if you could move back in time to the first year that you started doing professional things, what would you tell young Joseph?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know if there's anything I would necessarily change because I think a lot of the mistakes that I made helped speed up and amplify
I know the
like
feeling.
everything I'm doing today. I sure made a lot of mistakes and burned a lot of cash in the process. I would say if I had to pick something, I would probably like lean on some of the confidence aspects. So I think there are a lot of like decisions and things that we did as a company that in my gut, I knew it was the wrong direction or thought it was not aligned with where I like saw us running towards. And at times I felt like because I knew I didn't know enough or I didn't want to rock the boat within, my company, I bit my tongue maybe one too many times more than I needed to,
It
rather than
happens.
just saying, hey, I have conviction in this like thing and this is like the rationale and I'm gonna like be steadfast. So I would say that that is something that I've gotten much better at now, but something I didn't do as much when I was first starting.
Do you see that? Because I can see by talking to you that you like to talk.
Do I? I
I
don't
think
know.
so. I think so. You like to talk at least, you like to talk about yourself, you smile while you're talking. This is always good. But I also met some entrepreneurs or some founders, and this is not a criticism whatsoever. But I've met some who would rather spend their entire days in a box with their computer instead of going outside and talking to people.
Yeah.
Was networking a very important part for you, especially for SupaDemo, in like getting more and more leads at the beginning? And I'm gonna say leads, but sometimes it's a friend of ours, it's those connections that we talk to. I know the feeling. But like being talkative or at least having a network, did it really help you? Or no, it was mostly about market product fit. It was mostly about being the right person at the right time. What can you say about this?
Ultimately, I think it always boils down to product market fit, right? You can be the
Awesome.
loudest person in the room, but
That's true.
unless your product actually adds value, even your friends aren't. The people are busy, right? Your friends
Yeah.
don't want to use a product that doesn't actually amplify what they're doing and adds value to their day. I do think having a network is supremely important, but I also think it's very context dependent, right? I think for me, just to paint a picture and an example, my last company that's still around, it's called Freshline, and basically what we do, it's a commerce and operations platform for food
Okay.
distributors and wholesalers. So it's kind of like Shopify, but for seafood distributors and
Oh,
for
that's nice.
meat distributors that sell to B2B clients. And for that, obviously, my startup network wasn't as useful. They didn't know about the space. They don't have connections that they could introduce me in the distribution space. And I think it's helpful in the sense that they could be a sounding board and we can go back and forth and they can give me practical advice on scaling, distribution, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not really getting me customers versus I think with this new company, SupaDemo, it's highly applicable to almost like anyone that has a need to demonstrate workflow or product and feature. So naturally, I think by meeting people and just getting like the company's name out there more and more, people see that, right? And then they end up getting curious and trying it out. And especially nowadays, I think it's supremely important because I think the cost of obviously creating software is nearly at zero. Anyone with a laptop can come in and kind of build what you're doing over time. So really, if you think about what is defensible, it's brand. Are you one of the top 2, 3, 4 names that come to mind when somebody thinks of a category? Are they seeing your content and your branding and the founder story on LinkedIn and in different kind of mediums? Do you have distribution? Like, is your product distributed efficiently across many different mediums, and are people seeing it that way? That is, I think, what a lot of people need to reorient focus towards.
Why don't we touch a little bit about this? Because as you said, it's important to make sure that people stick around, especially with how easy it is to create any SaaS tools nowadays. AI is helping create, and this is, I only read these in threads and X and everything else, but depending on the complexity of your tool, you don't even need a programmer anymore. You don't even need a dev anymore because AI will be able to, as I said, depending on the maturity of the tool itself, AI will handle it all. So in regards to being in a space where we can say, I think the whole world is overcrowded right now. But in regards to being in a market with a lot of screen recorders, with a lot of showcase demonstration tools, how are you making sure to stand out? How are you making sure that people will stick around for further and further?
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to value again to the customer, right? You can have a product that has all the bells and whistles and all the features under the sun, but if you aren't building something that's simple, delightful, easy to use, and intuitive without someone needing to be technical, this is not going to get adopted, right? People are busy. People have a lot on their plate. So you want it to be your system or your product or your experience to fit in seamlessly to whatever they're doing habitually and just be so simple that it doesn't matter that it doesn't have every bell and whistle under the sun. It achieves kind of the core premise or the core value of what it's trying to deliver. And for that, it really just boils down to like, how do you actually get them to that aha moment, that value moment as quickly as possible? And how do you, it's all about like product craftsmanship, right? How do you like care and obsess over all of the little details that other people aren't going to and just get it right and iterate on it over and over and over and over again? So, which is hard to do, right? Because I think simple products are easy to build, very, very difficult to scale and do exceptionally, right? You think about a product like a Loom or a Calendly, and I think everyone on the outside looks at it and they're like, why is it successful? Or like, hey, like, why hasn't anyone ripped it off? It's because they've really narrowed down and made the core product experience so simple and easy and delightful, right?
One example that I'm seeing about this, coming back to the sales part of my life, when I started with SaaS back in 2019, everyone liked to use Salesforce or HubSpot. It was either one of them both. And then I remember going to the office during this beginning, and sitting next to me was a Salesforce engineer. And not gonna lie, still to this day, I think it's kind of odd that this is necessary. I'm not blaming the engineers at all. No, it's just like Salesforce created such a huge monster out of their own software that you need experts to implement this. And if I go nowadays, in this day and economic, if I go to any tool and I see that I'm going to need to hire somebody from the outside, if I'm going to need experts to do it, if it's going to take a whole long time to set up the tool, I'm not going to say that it's going to be a deal breaker, but it can be a letdown. So I understand in regards to what you're saying, and coming to think about it, you can do a SupaDemo demonstration of SupaDemo using SupaDemo. Right?
You can,
So
yeah. I mean, that's what I do in demos.
that must be incredible. And then I ask you, like, is your sales team using such videos of SupaDemo, using SupaDemo to like, do the demos themselves? Are you sending email outreach so that people can get to know about you? And it can be an end, but or/and, are you also like spending on influencer marketing, on ads, on SEO, on LinkedIn social selling? You don't need to disclose any secret tips, don't you worry. Just curious to understand how is it that you're working with right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any secrets. The product sells itself.
Awesome.
We don't
That's
have
the
any
dream.
outbound. We don't do sales. We don't really do ads. We don't do LinkedIn ads, Google ads. Really, the core premise is, you create product demos, and you share it out with your audience, whether they're customers or prospects. And if you give that end viewer a delightful experience, not only does the person creating the company creating the SupaDemo benefit, but also we benefit because naturally, if you're a SaaS company and you're always looking to iterate and improve, you go through that kind of guided learning by doing back and forth interactive experience. And you're like, holy crap, like this is really cool. I could use it in my own onboarding. I could use it in my knowledge base. So that kind of gets the wheels turning. And we make it very easy for them to sign up. So they can sign up, no credit card needed. To try the free trial. You also have a free plan. So I think we make it really easy for the product to go viral. And then we obviously invest in like content, thought leadership, posting on LinkedIn, SEO, et cetera, et cetera. But we haven't invested in direct outbound. There's reasons for that. I'm happy to go into it, but yeah, we haven't.
If you wanna and you can talk about it. Because
Sure. Yeah,
right
totally.
because right now I see that a lot of people usually struggle with getting users. No matter if they're doing marketing or sales channels, they're still struggling. And I know that you already managed to get more than 50,000 users in SupaDemo very quickly. So yeah, why isn't outbound sales something that you're considering? Is it because it's too much nowadays? Are people exhausted out of it? What do you think of it all?
I think that's a part of it. I think there's a lot of noise in inboxes. And number two, I think it's actually hard to do well. It's very, very hard to do well. And my ethos and philosophy behind this is on the outbound side, it's not as simple as slapping on or adding a BDR or adding an AE and saying, hey, go run with it and just get me 100K in revenue every month. They're going to need
I'm
their
having
own
war
like,
memories here already.
systems, processes. You need to then manage. You need to like have the right stack. You need a lot of effort to do it right. And as a company that is really quickly growing with a lean team, it's frankly just systems and protocols and time that I don't have. So I would rather not do it than do it shittily or like half-assing the sales process, because I think that actually reflects even worse on your company if you're doing poor outbound or like and a client sees it. At that point, they've kind of made up their mind. They're like, oh, I'm not going to use a tool like this. They're reaching out to me in this like particular manner, or they're being too salesy or sleazy. So that now that they see our content on LinkedIn, they're not even going to click it. It's like, oh, that was the company that like spammed my inbox and got my name wrong or whatever it is, right? So I'm like, I'd rather just not do that. Sure, maybe down the line, there's an opportunity to explore that channel, but it's something that you want to really methodically get right if you are going to do it.
I see. Wow. That's very interesting and very privileged, let's just say. Having, as you said, having a good product that sells itself is not something that everybody has. It's actually very hard to get it because at the end of the
I know.
day, when you can think about the biggest tech company ever, Apple, and you still have so many YouTubers doing iPhone 15 versus 16. Notice the differences here. Which one should you buy in 2025? So even Apple still needs that help. Even Apple
Yeah.
still needs that. Of course, they don't pay people to do it. They are also very much privileged in having the champions all over the world
Yeah.
talking to them about them, right? But it's interesting to see that this is not something that you're needing.
I mean, I think eventually, I think you need to layer on other channels. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we're going to become $1 billion company just doing like, organic PLG. But yeah, and I think it definitely is privileged. I'm not taking with like a grain of salt or taking it lightly. I think, and a lot of that honestly is I'm not even going to toot my own horn and say like, I did this, or I think a lot of it like success in entrepreneurship, honestly, is like timing. And like we got lucky, right? And I think a lot of other companies the founders are the first ones to admit when they get lucky, right? You're in the right nexus of like opportunity space, timing, funding, your skills. Obviously, you need to execute on the luck. I think that is the biggest thing. As a founder, you got to execute on what's given to you. But that's out of your control a lot of the times, right? It was out of control my first startup where I thought it should have been way more successful than it is. Not to say it's not successful, but again, we were just like in an industry that was slow moving, wrong timing, like a lot of different factors. So it's just kind of a luck of the draw.
And we have to come back to what we were saying some minutes ago, where it's easy to start, it's hard to stick around, and you are sticking around. So it's obviously not only luck. It's about your work, about the things that you learn, about the failures that you had back when you were younger. As you said, burned so many cash. Right now, I think you know better how to burn that cash.
Yeah, yeah, and luck takes time, right? Like
It does.
it's just like doing the slot machine. You're probably not going to win the first time, but if you're sticking around and running the slots for 3 hours, you might win.
Yeah.
Better
You
chances,
might.
right?
Yes. Yes. I even joke with this to my wife where I say, honey, I dated so many girls before you just so that I could understand and filter myself better and be a better man to you. She agrees to this day. So I think I'm with you in regards to having the experiences down the line so that we can understand what works and what doesn't. It
Yeah.
helps, right? It
Okay.
helps us solidify our next steps.
Yes, I'm gonna use that line.
Use it. You can put my name like Cope, Victor, Tinder saved my life. You can do that. Don't worry. Talking about the next steps, how do you see currently your market with the growth of AI? And what do you see can be a big trend in B2B product marketing, SaaS sales that no one's ready for yet? Do you have something in mind about it?
Well, in terms of trends that I see in like the B2B marketing, B2B sales space, I think is just buyers expect immediacy. I think, as I've alluded to, attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. People want to not have to jump through hoops or like have to talk to a person in order to see the value of the product. And it's actually like beneficial for both ends, right? Because for the person trying to book someone onto a demo, if you could qualify and make sure that the person that you're talking to fully understands your product and your benefits and the value before booking the demo, you're just going to have naturally better conversations and build relationships rather than trying to explain what you do during the demo or like walking through features. I mean, the other end as well, yeah, like I mentioned, buyers just expect immediacy. They don't want to read your marketing lingo and marketing speak. And oftentimes I think we as the people crafting the copy think it's way clearer to the buyer than it actually is.
I've been to
No
that.
one understands it, right? They look at the website and they're like, what? I don't even understand what this means or what it just show me the product. Show me the product. And that is the best way to visually understand what you do and why it matters. So I think that's a ongoing trend and obviously a trend that we're benefiting from and like creating as a space. To answer your first question about like AI, it is an existential thing that we are thinking about. I think every industry and every company needs to think about that. Ultimately, I think there's no way to predict the future, right? Like we need to be cognizant of what is coming and build up a moat and defensibility and think about the roadmap in the lens of like AI changing the landscape. But we can't reorient our entire business around like what isn't true just yet. Right. So I think it's just being as nimble and like as flexible and on our toes as we can and just building for, say, the next quarter or like 6 months at a time and maybe not projecting too far, but like keeping an eye open on what you need to think about with AI.
Makes sense. I would finish our conversation asking if you have any tips for anybody who want to start with a software like you did, but I think we already covered this back when I talked about young Joseph. So instead, I'm going to ask you, now you've been around the world, you've been around the market, you know how it is, you get to try stuff, you get to talk to different people, different markets, different everything, right? But at the same time, as we said a few minutes ago as well, it is very much overcrowded. So when we're talking about standing out, making sure that we get the highlight, making sure that we get the crowd's attention, without mentioning sales or marketing or anything else, is there a funny tip that you would give our audience on how to make sure that people stick around with you? Is there something silly or something that's very basic that you use that you don't see gurus talking about, but you know that it works?
I don't think there is like a secret, like a magic potion that works everything. I think it's very
I
think it's very context dependent, but I think just putting your like face out there more, I think is important. Like people want to buy from people, not organizations, right? So I think that's something that I probably only realized like a year ago, not even a year ago, where I think if you look at like our LinkedIn, for example, there's probably like none with my face on it. But now like I am posting like 4 times a week, crafting content, putting myself out there, even if it is like uncomfortable. And you might think that I
It
like
is, right?
love doing this, and part of it is just it's not necessarily the case. It's just more so I talk to like 6 customers every single day, right? I have like these types of calls every week, so I've just become more like used to it. It's not necessarily that I'm like I love doing it, or I'm like waking out of the from my bed saying I want to do this like podcast or I want to do this demo. But yeah, putting like face to the name and like humanizing your brand, I think is gonna become more and more and more important moving forward.
100%.
Yeah.
If you go to my LinkedIn, you're gonna see that we have people throwing boxes in my face, throwing myself into a pool,
Oh, I love
smashing
it.
me with a table tennis racket. Yeah, just for content creation stuff. And it
And
works.
yeah, and I think what I would say to that, actually add to that, Victor, is if you're not being cringe, if you're in B2B, if you're not being cringe, or if you're not cringing at your posts, like you're not posting enough. Like
Yeah.
I cringe in my posts every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's like, this is
Do I
not,
really
I
need
don't
to?
want my
Yeah,
friends to see
oh
this,
my
right?
God,
But
I
it
they have
works.
the exact same. It
It
works.
works.
I know. I don't know how. I really don't know how. I don't know why. I
Part
know
of the
how. I
job.
don't know why, but it is part of the job and it works. People like it. People engage further. And I understand what you're saying. Finishing down the conversation, as I said at the beginning, I was a sales guy for SaaS companies for so long. And at that time, we weren't even talking about personal branding. It wasn't a thing to
Mhm.
have yourself on videos, to have yourself on the company's page. Only if I had that knowledge by the time, only if at the time I remembered to do myself some branding so that customers would stick around no matter where I was working at, no matter for what company I was defending. So
Mhm.
I agree. I do it as well. You don't need to make sure that people are bashing you or throwing boxes. It works. People like to hit me. I have this. I heard that I have a hittable face,
Okay.
punchable face. Yes.
Well, I'm gonna look at your LinkedIn. I don't think I've seen those. I'm gonna maybe get some
Take a
info.
look. The last one with the slap, people thought it was fake, the slap
Oh.
itself. It wasn't fake. The sound you're gonna hear, it's not fake. And I was for around 15 seconds, like my ear was like ringing. Like I couldn't hear some stuff. But it created engagement. People started following, more people added me, more people wanted to talk. So it is important.
Okay.
Humanizing yourself, not selling SupaDemo, not selling DWS,
Yes.
not selling backlinks. It is important. I agree. And I very much appreciate the talk we just had here, Joseph. It was brilliant having you on the show. Before I close here, would you like to share a last piece of advice or any last thing to those watching us?
No advice. I think, I mean, I already kind of covered this, just taking the leap and just, inching forward step by step is like the most important thing. Taking that leap of faith, I think when it comes to like building is probably you're already like 90% ahead of everyone else who like talks about being a founder or an entrepreneur and never actually takes action. But otherwise, I would say for anyone that, has the need to create better product demos or tutorials or guides or content across the stack, customer success, onboarding, enablement, sales, feel free to visit supademo.com.
Links
You
in the
can also
description.
reach out to me. Yeah, you could reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with people, chit chat, jam on ideas anytime. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That's it, Joseph. Thank you so much for being over the show. Really appreciate your time. For everyone else, this has been Victor. You know where to find us. You know where to find Joseph. All the links are down in the description below. Just take a look. It's very much worth your time, I promise. Because again, when I was researching about Joseph and I came to SupaDemo, I was like mind blown over the fact that this now exists. And you're going to be as well. It's very simple, very intuitive, but it works. And that's what matters, right?
Yep.
It works.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
having me.
See you in the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph.